Thanks so much for having us. Thanks for making the space to be here. Yeah, we weren't really sure how we wanted to set up today, so we kind of made a point, so we kind of knew what to talk about. We're gonna follow that a little bit. We may only get to 2 slides and never see the whole thing because we got into a conversation. But yeah, we mostly kind of called today holding space of connection, resistance, and resiliency. When Carly reached out and asked if we could present, or asked if I would present, talking a bit about how I do the work, why I do the work. I couldn't imagine not doing it up on stage with somebody else, especially Kevin and Rachel. We've been working together alongside each other for about, I don't know what, a decade? About that? Yeah, something like that. A long time. And yeah, but definitely a lot of the ways that I work influenced by them, learn with them, learn alongside them. So yeah, excited to get to it. You can jump on the next slide. Do you wanna?
Yeah. Yo Lisas, Gala Castle and Miguam, Sakti Laoba, which is a potluck stream that was passed down by my grandfather, who is a hereditary chief. I come from a long line of hereditary chiefs. And I'm very grateful to be an uninvited guest on the ancestral unceded homelands of the Musqueams and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Gala Castle, so much. My English name is Rachel.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, I guess kind of just before we really get into it too, just wanted to, instead of blowing through everything, take pause, just maybe take a moment of silence to honor some of the folks that aren't here today. Yeah, you know who they are. Maybe let's take like 30 seconds, those folks online, those folks here, and just like 30 seconds of silence to really think. 30 seconds doesn't even really feel like enough now, so I might count it fast. So sorry if you were still thinking of some folks there. Next slide, please. Yeah, so it's hard to even really get into conversation without kind of making space to talk about some of the problematic language. We could actually do an entire presentation about problematic language within the work that we do. It felt important for us to name some of the language, like peer worker, people with lived experience, people with living experience. Those are words that were created by academia to contain the other, you know, what is the experience of the folks that are. And so this seems important when we sit on UPC, that we just kind of name that. Like we can come up with different names, better names. But like as we are going to talk about shared language, that's the language that a lot of people are using. So we're going to continue to use it. I just wanted to really name that we can try to maybe think of some other things as groups and think about how we can change that. Next one. Do you guys want to do any talking? You want me to keep going? Yeah. Yeah, kind of the day, right? So just a bit of a safety agreement. I always try to, anytime we be a part of a day or part of a presentation, is how do we make sure we're creating safety for each other? You know, like it says right there, shit's hard, our grief, our anger, our frustration, rage, it's all going to come out in different ways. Who knows what we're going to say today, what's going to be talked about as we're making zines, you know? But let's always hold space for each other and with each other in a good way. So just kind of needing that agreement. That we value all experiences, different lived and living experiences, levels make for more robust engagement. So, you know, we have some folks who've been around for 30 some years doing the work, other folks 1 year into it, right? Everybody brings something, so just holding space for everyone to bring that. I also realize I sometimes talk quickly, so if I am talking quickly, please let me know. Let me slow down. Yeah, take the learning, don't take the story, right? So we're going to share a lot of stories. People are sharing their experiences. It's amazing to share, but stories are not yours to take. So just being present with that. Heavy learning and conversations. Do what you need for your body, your heart, and your spirit, right? If you need to get up, go have a smoke, do it. Bio break, coffee. There's scale fresh fruit out there. Like Kevin was saying, it's amazing when someone else cuts up fruit for you at take time. So do what you got to do. But yeah, just to be present, do what you need for yourself. And then lastly, a shared commitment to guarding each other's dignity and working towards repair when that's broken. So yeah, just kind of we're going to move forward today. Like that's the way we want to set up a bit of a safety agreement. Awesome. Next slide. We originally kind of put this together when we were going to be the first speakers, so we're still going to go that way. Sometimes it's great to set an intention at the beginning of your day or beginning of a workshop or a presentation to be like, why am I here? What am I doing here? So one of the things we ask is everybody could maybe think about this. If anyone feels like, we're not gonna hand the mic in this moment, but you know, if anything's up there sets for anyone, like what's an intention for your participation in today's learning community? What do I hope to get out of today? Why did I make myself time to attend? Because like we're all busy, so we're here for a reason. So like let's take pause and figure out why we made space, why are we here? How can I make this day useful to me and my teams and the folks that we work alongside? And how can I return these teachings and my leadership, lateral mentorship to my teams? I guess, does anyone have anything they want to name as an intention today? Or I can always ask Rachel or Kevin, I'm going to start picking on them too. Yeah, please.
Connecting with other community members who are doing this work to best serve our
Beautiful, thank you. Awesome. Anyone?
Yeah, I think that today my hope was for that folks got to walk away feeling inspired and hopeful and excited to be in the work, because it is an incredibly difficult time to keep showing up in crisis when, for folks with lived experience, we don't get to go home. It's in our personal life. When we go to work with it. And this is the first time that we've been able to connect in real life in a long time. I've been doing lots of virtual stuff. But I thought it would be, my hopes were that folks left being excited to be in the work again and with some new tools and perspectives, so.
You have anything you wanna?
I'm still what I wanted to say.
That's what Rachel said.
That's what Kevin does for the rest of today is use of that. Once you get started, you can't get them sad.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Yeah, a little bit about ourselves. Why are the three of us here sitting today? Thanks to anybody here could be up here having this conversation. Yeah, I would love for you to go first. So, yeah.
So my name is Kevin Parker. I'm somebody who's born and raised in Vancouver. I have many decades of lived experience. It's not that current, as I've been kind of staying out of that lifestyle for quite some time now, but I work in it. So I've been working in the supportive housing harm reduction field for about 10 years. I've been mostly working in housing. I also have quite a bit of lived experience with institutions, jails, penitentiaries, all across BC. Good times, free food, free smokes, lots of good poker. Yeah, I've been doing this work, and I came to this work actually because of Rachel. Like Rachel, I was doing different work. Me and Rachel have been friends for probably 30 years. Like wherever I go, Rachel is there somehow. Like it just doesn't matter. We're super close. Like she's the godmother of my children, and I'm the godmother of her children, and godfather. Close now. So yeah, I mean, Rachel submitted my resume to a housing organization where I currently work now. I also work with her at a Spencer Creo Foundation doing outreach and support peers that work in OBS sites downtown. Yeah, so I got into the work because of Rachel. I got a call from a director saying, hey, you submitted your resume, you want to come for an interview? I was like, who is this? And it's funny because we were actually at a memorial, you know, for a friend who had lost her life to some circumstances around the drug poisoning. This was quite some time. It was about 10 years ago. So I think the poisoning was around a little bit before people actually knew about it. But yeah, so I got into the work and I came in apprehensive for numerous different reasons. Like for a person with lived experience, it's a little bit different, especially back then. You came into space and you weren't sure how people were going to take you. Hey, that guy did this to me, or hey, that person did that to me, or hey, how am I going to be respected by people like that came from this school per se, that I was working with, that I was intimidated by, that I had no clue about, that I was persecuted by per se in the past. And I got right into the work, and I realized like pretty quick, like I had some good friends and some good allies, and Tara was one of them. And I just ran with it, and I absolutely love the work. My whole life is basically around this work. Like I'm obsessed with it. I have been, and it's that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to stay in this. Like I think the expectancy of people, like workers' expectancy, is pretty low. Like it's like 2 or 3 years per se. People are moving on to different things. I've been peers somehow for 10 years somehow, and I worked right through from the beginning of the crisis till now, and it's 10 times worse. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you again. My name is Rachel Plamondon-Assu from the Resiliency Foundation, which is Calgary, BC, from North Vancouver Island. I've been an invited visitor in the Coast Salish territory since my teenage years. I am a person with lived experience of substance use, sex work, and all the lifestyle that goes in between that. I spent almost 20 years entrenched and precariously housed. My drug use criminalized the entire time. In 2010, I finally got housed through the Housing First approach. Actually, well, rewinding a little bit, I never accessed shelter. I was always reliant on community, room hopping, staying wherever I could. So this shelter, because my experience with service providers and how I was treated coming into shelter wasn't always the greatest. So I just kind of stayed clear and did my thing. But it was actually the heat shelters that RainCity opened, and their approach was no barrier or very low barrier, and a really meet me where I'm at approach. And I was kind of skeptical. That's part of it. I got housed, and within 6 months, I had decided I needed to exit. I had a lot of moments of clarity. I hadn't had that kind of space to even comprehend what I've been through for the last 20 years. And just for context, I ended up in that position due to Jenna's little erasure. Like I grew up in the 80s where I was appeared white in an Indigenous community. There was lots of racism. It was easier for me to identify as being white, so I never really was able to embrace who I am until the last 10 years. So like cultural genocide is a big reason why I ended up in the situation that I did. I got back into the work immediately. I went to a school which I absolutely did not need to spend $20,000. I just finished paying it off like 13 years later. Like I actually could have taught the course, and like my lived experience wasn't like a top resume contender in 2010. Like experience was still quite new, and there's was a ton of stigma around that kind of experience. But I came back and I wanted to be with my community. I wanted to instill hope and I think that I never actually came in with the attitude of wanting to save anyone, more so that I wanted to meet people where they were at to see what they needed. And because I wasn't able to make choices to do anything different until I had that opportunity and the autonomy to decide how things went. Not you need to go to detox, you need only everyone has an agenda, and and everyone wants to come in thinking that they want their folks to do well, but like that usually comes with people putting their own perspectives and what they think is best on the people, and I find that is just a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? A lot of room for shame and guilt. I actually, in the start of the 2013, before they declared the crisis, I was responding to a minimum of 10 overdoses per shift. There was no naloxone. I was finding dead bodies. I was responding. I was literally breathing my air into a dead body on every shift almost. And because I wasn't taking care of myself properly, I ended up back in a pretty dark place. I picked up substances again in the midst of a fentanyl crisis, which was very dangerous. And I didn't actually use opiates but I overdosed 3 or 4 different times because it was in what I was using, because it came off what I was using. And even though I knew that and I'd come out of this crisis, it wasn't enough for me to make a different choice. So I stayed up for a year, and I think that a lot of people, I had Kevin and Tara, who were my managers at the time. And I was like, I showed up at work one day and I was like, I just knew that there was no more, I just like, here's this note, like I sold a bag of crack pipes on the way out, like you're cling, 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 cling on my way out the door. And, I was off, and, I was able to make it back by folks using a harm reduction approach with me. There wasn't expectations and there wasn't guilt and shame put around you have a kid at home, you have this, you know how to do this, you got here before, what's wrong with you? There was a lot of love and compassion. And as a result of that, I was able to come back and be sitting here today. But I'm passionate about peer work, and I'm passionate about lived experience, and I'm passionate about being able to create safe space. And I'm really excited to continue having conversation with you today. So I'm gonna hand it back to Tara. My hands are sweaty, my mic dropped the mic.
Yeah, like I said, I'm Tara. I've been working in the downtown east side around 17 years, so it's been a while. I started at RainCity probably 17 years ago. If they had language of peers, I would have come in as a peer, but as like a able-bodied cis white person, I didn't have to identify with that to get the work. I definitely showed up white savior. I was here to save everybody and do everything. And on like one of my first days, a gentleman toe cutter took me aside and told me to stop doing that, just to get out of the way, do what people asked. And I was like one of the greatest things someone ever took the time to tell me. And it kind of changed the way that I did the work. Yeah, Rachel and I met at the heat shelters. It was also one of the places where fundamentally the way that I did work changed is what it was to exist inside a shelter with folks. And it was community was created. Well, community was there, but community was created there. You know, and then yeah, here we are that many years later, still around, still doing some things, some conversations. Yeah, so next slide. Yes, safety, language, and collective ethics. That's what we're going to try to talk about. That's what we're going to encourage you to think about and also talk about. Just give a name. A lot of our slides up here are of photos of the downtown east side. Most of them are of some amazing graffiti that you see around. You have Grow Up, you have some Smoky, then there's a couple of just electrical boxes. I actually don't know who did those, but just really want to name that there's, thanks, that, yeah, the images up there because we didn't want you just staring at us, but I also don't want to not mention who's already looking at. So next photo, or so next slide. Yeah, what is safety, right? Safety looks like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And we just want to kind of break down the three core things that we wanted to talk about today: safety and collective ethics. I don't remember what was the other one. Yeah, there's a slide up there, it'll tell us what we're talking about. Yeah, so how do we set up safer best practices and responses, right? We kind of talked about this as we were preparing. Either you want to chat?
Yeah, I think for sure. When I think about setting up safety for folks in the work that we do, it's all about, it's building relationships with people. Like, I mean, you know, I was just in the midst of opening up this massive harm reduction building in Surrey with Fraser Health, and they're trying a new model in housing. It's called complex care. Folks probably have heard about it. So this was the first site from the bottom down that they were opening up, and they wanted, and you know, so the health authority is going to throw some money at folks, and then what they want is they want results quick, right? So I'm in all these meetings for quite some time. Okay, sorry. I'm in all these meetings for quite some time, and I was really intentional on letting people know that, you know, this is going to take time. Like, I understand you want results like right away, but it takes time to build relationships with people. We're a new housing provider. We're moving into a space where we're inviting new people into homes. First of all, people want to get comfortable in their homes. Never mind me coming down with a piece of paper and you want me to ask you a bunch of different questions about your personal history. You know, I said, that's not how it works. You know, I said, so to create safety for people, I think it's about creating relationships, and creating relationships is about letting folks have patience with you. Like, you know what I mean? I don't need to have patience with folks. Like, I always gonna have patience with folks, but I mean, I need to let them be patient with me for them to just feel comfortable enough to let me know what they need, you know? And I do know that there's been numerous situations when I was trying to get my shit together that I didn't feel safe talking to people. You know, I felt like everybody always had an agenda. And when Rachel was talking about like criminalizing like drug use, like I was just went a bit off topic, but I thought about something and I was like, I did almost 4 years in a penitentiary for $90 worth of dope. Like, seriously, $90. Like, that's fucking insane. You know what I mean? Like, and I was ripped away from my family, my children, you know, and that's just harsh, you know, and And literally not even really $90 worth of like it's literally like a few crumbs. Like it's just wild. So it's like creating safety. It looks like a bunch of different things, but I do know one thing. It's about building relationships and making people feel okay with you. And that's one thing I like about, you know, identifying as somebody with some lived experience and having a quite a bit of compassion and understanding for the struggles that, you know, Black folks and Indigenous folks and all folks go through. But I mean, I can listen and kind of understand where people are at, and the patience goes both ways with the relationship building and taking time for people to feel safe, to find out what they need. Like, I don't push my agenda on anybody. Like, I've been in recovery for a long time. I probably haven't talked about recovery at work in 9 years. Like, I just don't do that. You know what I mean? If somebody asks a question, then possibly, you know, that's not what I go there for. I go there to find out what folks want, what they need, and then if I'm able to get them there one way or another, then we try to get there in a good, safe way.
Sorry, I think safety, as an Indigenous person who's experienced the effects of colonial genocide and the overrepresentation of the Indigenous people that we're serving. Something that I really try to uphold is access to no barrier culture, which means that you don't need to be abstinent to be able to access. And this becomes a little bit difficult. And I heard Kali touch on it a little bit, just in the sense of talking with youth to the nation. I know personally the discussion of substance use and overdose response in my own nation personally. There's a lot of misunderstanding and uneducation around what that looks like. I think it's very much thought of enabling still. They're very much hold the red road journey and abstinence to a higher level. And I believe, you know, looking back, I can see, you know, our communities have been destroyed by drugs and alcohol. But what has been for me as an Indigenous person, that was accessing harm reduction. If I was able to have that welcoming presence and being able to access medicine or circles, songs and teaching, like, that's reconciliation. Like, you can talk a lot about what reconciliation is, but cultural safety and being able to provide and have an elder and have knowledge keepers, have Indigenous support workers upholding that experience for our Indigenous clients, that safety. We're a long way out. I feel like just like as a community, and I know that everyone here is on the same page of being able to unpack that. But for me, that's when I think of safety, that's cultural safety and able to access culture regardless of circumstance.
Yeah, when I think about safety, like, because I do work across Canada and in lots of different centers and stuff with MySafe and stuff with overdose prevention around facilitation, it's also, it goes back to the relationship, right? Like, what is safety? Like, if Kevin and Rachel or I can create safety at one space, but we couldn't replicate that same thing somewhere else, we've not created we've created one safe space, right? So kind of going back to some of the things we were saying there, the knowledge sharing, the transfer of learning what it is, making space to hear everybody's experiences, helps create safety in a way that can be replicated. Again, what we do in Vancouver looks radically different than, like, I was just in Winnipeg. We could never do, well, Winnipeg's not doing what it was doing in the downtown east side. They're still, you know, catching up on some of the harm reduction practices. Yeah, next slide. Some people might recognize this guy up here. I like to often give shout out to Trey as somebody who creates really safe spaces. He's one of the people, along with Amy and Sarah and many others, that hold down what is North America's busiest consumption site. And the reason it's so busy is the community that's been created there and the safe space that's been created. It's not just safe consumption, it's safe community, right? So everything from, and he'll talk a lot about it later, but the arts, but also Trey's someone who's really aware of his power in positions and in spaces. As a big guy who holds a position of manager, you know, he can actually do a lot of harm, but instead there's a lot of training on how to step aside, how to make space. Often is always holding people up. And so to me, I just like to kind of just name some of the ways that we see in practice, the ways that people are creating safe spaces. Next slide, please. Language, why is language important? Well, you know, we can't actually hold those safe spaces if we're all talking a different language. Like I think about some of the times, I'm not a professional, I don't have any kind of degree. I've sat at a lot of tables with a lot of professionals and felt really unsafe. You know, like even though I did have a lot of power in that room at that table. So shared language is really important. You know, everything that we talk about around harm reduction, around cultural practices. It's one of the things we want to do is we obviously aren't going to speak the same language. I didn't do time in prison. I can't speak to that in the same language, but I have an understanding of what Kevin's talking about, right? So yeah, shared language is pretty important. Can we go to the next one, or you guys can talk about some of shared language? No? Yeah, let's go to the next one. This one, I'm very proud of this slide because I learned how to make lots of different banners and then switch them so it looked like a collage. So yeah, we just kind of thought about some of the different words that really stood out to us, right? And so looking up there, I don't know, what do you want to grab one of those words and talk about it?
Necro policy.
Yeah.
It's my favorite, and I actually didn't understand what the term was until fairly recently. And for folks who don't know what necropolicy is, it's essentially policy that kills people. And right now we are under policy that is literally killing our folks by the boatload. And it doesn't feel like there's an ending in sight. We keep you know, shouting from the rooftops what we need, and you know, we're still in a place of crisis and war essentially. Necropolicy was something that just stuck with me because we are in a place right now where the policy around drugs and drug users is killing them, and so that one was my favorite.
I think I like the one Rachel put up there. It says nothing about us is without us. I think about that. I've sat at many tables as well with different types of professionals, ministers, health authorities, directors, and I tell you, it's super uncomfortable. It's super weird. Like, honestly, some of the stuff they're talking about, I don't even know what they're saying, you know? And I just kind of pretend, oh yeah, I know. Yeah. And then I wait but what they're talking about is how to open up like a consumption site, or they're talking about how to open up a housing site, and it's like you're talking about shit you have no clue about, you know. So it's nothing about us, you know what I mean? Without us. So when I get a space to be there, I try to replicate what I see folks needing or wanting or tell me about as tenants in buildings or people that are using consumption sites. And I don't think any decision should be made around people's safety and people's well-being without us. Like, it makes no sense. It's pretty simple. It's simple to me. So I get super passionate. I start to get a bit frustrated, a bit angry, and I think lots of us in the room are these days, because at the end of the day, people are dying because the people are doing shit without understanding, learning from the people who know what they're talking about, which is our community, which is our people, which is the people that work in this field. And I just think it's super important that when we get a chance to use our voices, like Tara talks about that power, like I sometimes actually, it's hard for me to understand that I do have some of that sometimes. So when I'm at those tables, whether I feel like I have power or not, the power is that I'm already there. So when I'm there, I'm gonna take up as much time as I can, and I'm gonna let them know as much as I think that they need to know to create safety and good space for our people. And you know, I'm gonna do that. And when we were opening up this new facility, I just like to talk about that because there's so many different sections of the facility that were important to me, and it was a big part of it is culture for Indigenous folks. So one thing is we brought it and lived experience. So we brought in Rachel to talk to the health authorities about this is the money we need for these culturally specific positions and these peer-led positions, and basically the whole building, all the extra money other than the health pieces, the nurses and psychiatrists and the doctors, all the rest of it is peer-led and cultural positions, period. Like, and that's where the real work is done. Because nobody's gonna come to see the doctor if you don't feel safe, right? Doesn't matter if the doctor's downstairs. Hard enough to get them there if the doctor's around the corner. But if you feel safe, you know, and you have a peer worker or you have a Indigenous support worker talking to an Indigenous person living in the building, and they feel safe, they might get them down there, right? And so that's why I think that, you know, nothing should happen without us.
Just to touch a little bit, thank you, Kevin, on nothing about it without it. That's actually the mentality. So I'm the senior manager of peer and harm reduction services at RainCity Housing. So essentially I lead the org on peer and harm reduction and overdose response. and best practices. And we started out very small, one manager, one assistant manager, maybe not even 3 years ago, and through the COVID crisis, it exposed obviously areas that were not being supported, and there was funding that went towards some of that. We were able to open a sex worker drop-in, some washroom trailers, different overdose prevention sites, and EOPS, which is essentially witnessing someone use just like at the drop of a dime. And like Trey, and I don't only just by, I haven't actually got to work directly with Trey. I feel like I support all the sites outside of his sites, and he's like in the core hub. But I really look to Trey with how he was building his teams, and I seen the community, and we had that amongst our programs. But like I really just took that nothing about us without us. Like I didn't leave anyone behind. As soon as I was in a position where I had the opportunity to bring my community on this ride with me, like I did that. And I think that Trey does that too. He like the relationships that come from all the interpersonal, like my substance use reached far and wide, like far and wide. And like I was known because I was just a staple wherever I was, like and in the recovery community as well. So, I think the basis that, to work with Trey or I, you have to use drugs or abuse drugs. That's a pretty cool guideline, because for historically, that's something that gets you fired from a job. Do you know what I mean? So to be able to create space and meaningful work that people are already doing, and not getting paid or acknowledged for, and I think that that's been the biggest joy for me. And the relationship piece is that like everywhere I turn, there's someone I know. Like the culture of the organization has shifted to lived experience because of the way we've been able to embrace it, and working in colonial structure that already been put in place. As somebody with lived experience, I work from a bottom-up approach and a top-down approach in an organization. So every step of the way is like a fight. It's a fight. The thing that broke me to tears this year was a freaking printer. I like my director's looking at me and I'm sobbing. She's like, I have a printer. Do you know what I mean? She's like, use your petty cash. It's okay. Like, but it's like the little things like that I need to do my job, and things like is provided everywhere else, but in here in overdose response work, it's not as important. So like Kevin said, finding space at the table and rocking the boat is like so freaking uncomfortable. I feel like lived experience and then the Indigenous is like, it's hard sometimes not to feel tokenistic in it. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not always heard the first time I speak something. I've been saying for months, I say things for months and gently, and then finally I feel like I have to yell around a little bit to be heard, right? And that's been my experience in this work so far. So yeah, thank you.
I think I'm gonna ask one other person if they have a word that they want to say before we jump back. The one that, like, obviously they all mean something to me. The one that really pops for me is the vicarious resistance. So we hear a lot of the times people talk about vicarious trauma, like the trauma of the hard work, the stuff that's happening around you, it's bringing you down, it's the burnout. And when I heard Vicki Reynolds use the phrase vicarious resistance, it absolutely changed for me. It's like, yeah, you find that resistance, you find those places where people have hope, where people are still here, where Rachel for 2 months is yelling the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, and you celebrate those. And that's kind of like, as we're gonna talk a bit more, what keeps us in the work is that vicarious resistance. So that's the one that's popped for me there. I think before we move to the slide,
Just a bit more, like.
Yeah.
I'm still not really getting
for sure. So I can try to break it down. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, vicarious, it just means it's like through coming from somebody else into you. So vicarious trauma is often used a lot in professionalism in a lot of different classes. A lot of social workers, nurses, things like that would use vicarious trauma. So that every time that they see something bad happening, people dying, like all this stuff, that it kind of takes them out of the work, right? Because they take the other people's trauma and burnout and brings it into them. So using that same idea of vicarious, but like celebrating the resistance. So every day I see in community people resisting. I see people showing up to ops who, like, honestly, 8 years ago I didn't think that person would still be alive. Here they are now working at ops. You know, so the resistance of the continuous fight. I look to that, and that's what's in it. I don't let the trauma become mine. It's not my trauma. It's the resistance that I like to tear alongside. That kind of explain it enough, yeah. Does anybody have a word that they want to drop in here? Something that like really connects them to the work? It's no pressure. If not, we have lots of slides. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Oh, did you have something you want to?
No, I see yours.
Yeah, kind of talking about language here. Just about the hard work and the resilient, like vicarious resistances. We recently lost this gentleman, Junior, just a few days ago. He meant a lot to the three of us here. And when we think about like shared language and like yeah, how language is so important is Junior back in the heat shelters. When a lot of people, like myself, RainCity, were just like taking mad props for all this incredible work that they were doing in building community. Junior kind of brought us back to it by naming, we are always a community, you just gave us a roof. You know, and so it just kind of felt like a nice way to honor Junior today by remembering some of the most important, you know, and it's something too, when you think about safety, it's hard to like really how to bring this in, but like Rachel had named it, in which Junior was rarely housed, right? The guy was hard to house, and the reason he was hard to house is the moment he was housed, everyone was housed. So that door was open, nonstop people were coming in, and like property managers were like, you're out, you know, and so like this guy just, yeah, I don't know, I just wanted to make space because such a beautiful soul.
Regardless of that, and I know that survivor guilt because I did that, coming in and having space, and then like having people come in and get themselves barred for various reasons and still continuing to let people in my place because of that. And so I actually was able to name that it was a survivor's guilt. You know, it was survivor's guilt. Like I got a place and these people didn't, and I have space to let people in, even though I absolutely didn't. And that led me to eviction, actually. With persons in the room right now, they told me that this person didn't leave, that, you know, I was gonna lose my housing, and I locked myself in the room, and I said, if you don't give him housing, you know, then you're gonna have to kick us both out. And they decided, okay, we're just gonna give him housing. and you know, that was also part of his journey too. And, you know, when I think about Junior, I spent lots of time with Junior, houseless and struggling, and before the heat shelters became, I remember like being in like this little park across from on Seymour that has the fountain there. Before it was like a big bougie kids park that you can't hang out in anywhere in New Strokes. I remember sleeping there with Junior, and like he was like a safe space for me. And so you know, and I was able to be in space where he was housed and watch him do the same thing that at every single housing place. And it was he helped hold me right-sized in my work. And he helped kind of guide the framework of why I do the things I do. So, and I know we've lost a lot of people. I feel like on the day I found this out, I also found out 3 other people had passed away. I think social media just feels like an obituary these days. Like I got off of it for 2 months for my mental health because it just felt like, you know, everything was, it's like we're in a toxic drug crisis. It's a memorial page Facebook for me.
Next slide, please. Yeah, so what keeps us in the work, you know? Like we've named shit's hard, we're doing this, we've been through lots together. And so thinking about what keeps us in the work, the 3 of us kind of sat down to create this slide, and we were kind of bouncing around a whole bunch of words and phrases. And so, yeah, what we came up with is genuine connectedness with people. So again, the relationships that we were talking about, cultures of coaching and accountability. Kevin, Rachel, both great mentors. Like you said, you're bottom up. No one comes to you wherever you are, and you're taking people with you. That's a culture of coaching, right? And also a culture of accountability. Being able to be critiqued and called in or called out when you step outside of that is also really important in creating safety. You know, you can't do the work alone, especially if you want to do it safely and inclusively, right? Person and community centered. You know, we started person centered, and then we're like, actually, it's a bit more community centered. Then we're like, but also it's kind of person. So Kevin, maybe put both of those words up there. And then also is hope. You know, what keeps us in the work is hope, and you find hope in those small wins, in the celebrating the resistance. Yeah, slide kind of says it all, I just read it, but do either you want to speak to that?
Small wins, I mean, it's, when I think about structures, there's so many structures and so many different types of weird systematic colonial kind of things that are put in place for people, like, oh, you gotta do this, and you gotta do this, and if you do that, then you're doing great. I mean, if I can see somebody, like Tara says, somebody that I seen 8 years ago, now today is working it off. I know that's not a small win, but if I can see somebody from one day to the next, to me, that's a small win, but it's actually a huge win. Like, it's so scary, right? It's just so scary out there. We have this machine that Rachel brings to work, well, somebody does, and they test drugs with this machine. Like, I don't know if y'all have seen this machine. What's it called, Rachel?
Spectrometer.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how to use it either. My peers are like, this vibration
Rachel-
does this, and I'm like,
Rachel brings it there, but they know how to use it. It was some fancy, smart person from Fraser Health or VCH. But anyways, I watched this machine, and what I'm trying to get at is I'm absolutely blown away what is inside the substances. It's like, I laugh because it's a trauma response. It's actually terrifying. It's terrifying. You have one substance that slows your heart down. You have one substance that tells your heart to stop, and you have another one that tells your breathing to slow right down. And that's all compounded with massive percentages in a drug. And it's dirt cheap, and it's everywhere, and it's, so yeah. Anyways, small wins. I mean, it's huge for me, and what keeps me in the work is when I see people come down and they want to test their drugs, or you know, small wins is or hope is like, one thing I learned from Tara is that we were working in this massive building in Vancouver, and there was just like, it's a big building, so it's lucrative for people to sell drugs there. And we noticed this one person who didn't live there, but was a really nice person, you know, and they were the drug dealer, and we were like, let's give them an apartment, right? But back then, it wasn't like, you know, we weren't the property managers of the building, we were the support of the building. But anyways, we gave this person a place, and one thing I noticed about that is like, things really changed, like all these little small wins as I knew what was going on in the building, because this person would talk to me, this person would tell me what kind of substances were coming in the building. And you know, those personal connections with people like that, like I just seen that person the other day, and this was like 8 years ago, and I still seen him the other day, you know, just at Tim Hortons. And something that keeps me in it is it's to tell you the truth, like Rachel said, like my lived experience and my work, it never really stops, right? Like I have people, like I'm losing people at work, I'm losing people at home, I'm losing friends everywhere, I'm losing like people across the country, we're all losing people. So I have to try to have hope sometimes that things will change. And I also, you know, and I just got back to work after 10 years. I was off work for a bit, right? And it was scary, like, you know, and it took somebody like Rachel or somebody to tell me that I probably needed to take some time off. But I'm always telling myself, I'm fine. Okay, how are you? Fine. If somebody ever tells you they're fine, they're probably not fine, right? You know, I didn't want to leave my people. I didn't want to leave my staff. I had a staff, you know, like 50 people. You know what I mean? I didn't want to leave the staff. I didn't want to leave the tenants. And it probably was the best thing that I could have done. And it changed the trajectory of where I was going with my work. And I just like to keep hope that people are going to, you know, somehow their lives are going to change a bit for the better, you know, and I'm going to feel good about it for them. And they're going to feel good about it for themselves. But honestly, at times it's hard. You know, it's hard to keep hope. Like, you know, I've been back downtown working for the last couple of months, and it's tough walking around downtown. You know, it's not the same as it was 5 years ago. It's wild. So, but I do 100% still have lots of hope, just because I think that, you know, whether it's coffee fueled or whether it's something fueled, person fueled, I still always have hope.
I think about the question of what keeps you in the work, and I think that I want to talk about what kept me out of the work and what threw me out of kilter, and then circle back with what lessons I learned as a result of not taking care of myself. As a person with lived experience, I am in crisis very well. Like, I just function very well in crisis, very good at compartmentalization, very good at you know, moving forward and through the task. And the thing with being in this kind of crisis is that, like, there actually isn't room to continue doing that. And as a result of not being able to process all the things, and maybe not all of the things, but at least some of the things that I was going through, as a result of that, I ended up in a place where I could have been a statistic in the crisis. So what I do know now, and what I've learned from that is that there's never a good time to take time away from work. It's always gonna feel like you're short-staffed everywhere. Like we're in overtime call-ups, everyone's feeling like they want to be able to stay and be a part of it, but there's one of you. And like I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to, you know, work through some things that, you know, were helpful to me in that. And like one of that is community, having those like, you know, 3 or 4 people that I'm like constantly leaning in on. And like I joke a lot, like I think I'm hilarious because of the drama. I am. If you ever get me in a messenger thread, I am hilarious. But I think I am anyway. But yeah, as a result of not taking care of myself, you know, and being in this job where that makes me feel like I have to work twice as hard because I don't have the degree, I don't have, you know, the education, and I have to prove myself 10 times as much. You know, I was like burning myself at the end, you know, and I ended up on a work-day plan, which provided me therapy, which I realized, you know, it's a very colonial thing, you know, for some folks that maybe are not in, or indigenous or POC, that might be something that they've had bad experiences with, but therapy for me has been something that's been ongoing for the last 4 years. I don't think I would be able to sustain or be in the work without it, to be honest. And then my key group of community, also my culture, like I was able to go on a grief and loss retreat for 8 days a month ago. And on day 2, I thought I was not coming back to work. I was stripped raw. I was thinking, oh my God, what did I just do? I was thinking I'm gonna go away and have this nice little retreat. But the beautiful thing about that is that, you know, every day that they strip me down to, you know, actually the fundamentals of what generational erasure is, they put me back together with my culture and my song and my language, and they had cultural advisors and knowledge keepers and clinical support on site. And like, I got so much out of that it made me want to learn more about my culture. And like, because I'm not where I am from, I think that, you know, I've had to find my community in Vancouver. So I've leaned heavily into that. And then I have a hobby. You need to be able to have hobbies in this. You need to be able to have things that bring you joy. You know, it brings me joy, all the small wins, for sure. Being able to see people get, you know, the material stuff that they never thought they get. And it isn't even about the material stuff, but watching people be able to piece their life back together, that brings me some solace in it. But I actually need to put work into how I stay well. Like nobody's gonna do that for me. And so like I actually bullied Kevin. I feel like he's telling a little bit of he didn't actually say the full thing, how he took his time off work. But I was just like, you know, I was watching my friend spin out of control. And you know, I didn't want to be the person that, you know, said maybe you should take some time. But I was like, yo, yeah, you need to take, you know, I feel like you're gonna end up, you know, making some bad choices, and it's like actually harming you and harming your family and your mental health. And you know, when I think that he was able to hear that, and I said, don't end up where I did in 2016. I actually just don't have the capacity to chase you around out there. Like I don't. And you know, so like I learned some hard lessons, and I was able to put some things into place for me, for myself today. Like all my vacations booked for the year. Like bye. Like no, seriously, I've led this. I'm always feeling like I can't do that, but like I'm not able to take that time to reset. I'm no good to anyone, and I try to lead my team that way. I'm bullying them all over work day, like traumatic, anything like therapy, like stay connected, go home if you're not well. Like that's Tara Taylor. The way I work that way is very gray, and I think that when we support people with lived experience, it doesn't always look like following policy and the guidelines. When it comes to time off, we should be gatekeeping it, we should be encouraging it, we should be finding ways to make it happen. If your people are telling you that they're tired, then you find a way, regardless of what's in the sick bank. You know, And, you know, it's gonna come back some way from them. They're gonna show up some way for you, that overtime, last minute shift, you know what I mean? So when they're telling you that they need space, give it to them.
Next slide, please. Yeah, like that's the thing, right? It's okay not to be okay. And that's where we get back to where we're kind of tying it all together is like, how do we create safety and how do we make sure that like when Rachel needs to step away, when Kevin needs to step away, when somebody needs to step away, how do we make sure that stepping away doesn't mean that the folks that we're holding up fall down, you know? And so part of that is also establishing and making sure that you're kind of existing within some of your collective ethics. And that's like a really broad statement, but like, you know, when you're not alongside your folks, you know, when you're outside somebody and you don't share a collective ethic. And so we just kind of wanted to break down some of the ethics that we share. If we do the next slide. Yeah, harm reduction, right? Let's start there. Like as a form of dignity and autonomy, that is a core ethic that I think everyone in this room, no matter life or experience, could relate to. Do you want to talk about harm reduction, dignity? You want to see another slide? Yeah. Next slide. Some of the other collective ethics. Again, we sat down. The three of us talked about what are some of our core ethics that we wanted to name. We had like 100 things and then we brought it down to this here. So we talked about justice doing, we talked about respect and dignity. We talked about collective power to change systems of oppression. It's a mouthful, it's a lot, it could be its own whole presentation. Cultural wellness and inclusivity, right? So these are just some real basic core ethics that I think everyone could also like line up with, or like wouldn't be that surprised that everyone sitting in the room kind of shares that. Before we jump to the next slide, is there any core ethic? Dave, did you have skin?
Yeah.
I just saw you now, so I had to call your name. Yeah, anybody else have like maybe a core ethic or something that their team does or something that they hold up? If they want to name it, no worries if not. Cool. Next slide. Yeah, what are some of the shared ethics you hold on to, right? So we kind of just talked about some of the phrases of what is the core ethics that we share. And then of course, some of them are really going to stand out. I love this photo. It holds so many memories for so many things of different folks I've known that have existed and lived and made their living in that alley. Some of them aren't here today. Some of them are right here today and I'm super happy. So yeah, so I just kind of wanted to make some space to talk about what are some of the ethics that we're holding on to. Do you want me to put one of you on the spot? What do you got?
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I think you're talking to the
I
audience.
know you did.
I think one of the biggest ethics I hold on to is you talked about it with Trey earlier, is that I'm uber aware of the power I hold in my role, and I'm very uneasy with it. And I think that if you are a non-Indigenous person in a room with POC and Indigenous both, you need to be aware of that privilege. And I think that part of the, yeah, I think that also the, sorry, I was blind, that's it.
It's all good. All good.
Done.
A core ethic that we want to is just humanizing all kinds of parts of their work. I think, you know, people, like you look, I tend to, once in a while, I don't do job is get into social media threads too much, like say CBC posts something, and I start reading the way people talk about people, and I get pretty angry, right? Like, and I'm gonna say it in a nice way, because it, like I get really angry, I say some really things, I get angry. And I mean, it's just, it's not even because like I was that person or I am that person, you know, it's because that's just a human being. Like how can you talk about people like that? And until it's like I try not to get in a place of wanting to be like folks like that, but like I just almost are like, how would you feel if that was your so-and-so, your partner, or that was even you? You know what I mean? So I like to humanize and hold people up, and that's a core ethic that I think that a lot of people that I work with have the same kind of feeling around the, you know, the people that we're trying to support these days. And it's like I look at it completely different than how other people look at it. It's like those people that are suffering different types of, you know, situations in their life, you know, say folks who don't have a house, or folks who are, you know, using substances that are super toxic, or in situations that, you know, their health is ill, or like those people need more support, not people talking bad about them, or not people making them feel bad, you know, because that's probably the reason why, or one of the reasons why I stayed sick for so long, was because I didn't feel like people gave a fuck about me, you know, sorry. But yeah, I really hold on to that, and I think it's really important.
I almost swore again too. So I got my stuff together. I remember what I was gonna say. I think that the autonomy, I think that is something that's huge that I hold up in our department. And we talked a little bit about it earlier, that like, the folks being able to have the choice to decide how their life goes, whether they use substances, and making sure that we aren't putting our agendas and what we think is best. I think that making autonomy and upholding that in your team is something that I like to do. I know that as a personal lived experience, and everyone that works alongside me, I know that they wanted the choice to be where they were, and they made, being able to uphold people's dignity and like respecting that, you know, it's maybe not where they want to be. I find that like a lot of people that are in recovery that have lived experience immediately want to like put them on the path of recovery. And like, I think that recovery is a very broad term these days. I don't even like to use it. Wellness, I think, is the word we were talking about, like a wellness, where I'm at on it. Like, there's just a lot of guilt and shame that comes attached with abstinence. And I don't, so that's been a lot of the coaching conversation that I've had with our coach is around that. So the autonomy to choose and decide what they want to do in their case planning or whatever it is that you're working alongside them in.
Yeah, I think for me, one that really stands out, it's hard to choose one, right? But in the interest of everyone getting lunch, I will choose one. Yeah, doing solidarity means that all of the work that we do is interconnected, and then we act collectively to promote social justice. You know, like that's a sentence I wanted to make sure I remembered. I knew by the end of my presentation today, I might not have the brain to remember that, so I wanted to write it down. And that's the one that kind of lands for me, right? Is I can't do this on my own, nor do I want to do this on my own. And I just like how much everything's connected, relationship, and how you build all that. If we wanted to bounce to the very last slide, please. I think if we just wanted to, just if either Kevin or Rachel had one last thing we wanted to say, also just naming Rachel and Kevin do a lot of consulting. Their email address is on the bottom there. So if you are interested in reaching out to have them come back and talk, they can spend all day talking. And so, yeah, I wonder if you had anything you wanted to land with to wrap up.
12:05, like we did that without a question period.
I'll just say thanks to everybody for listening to me chit chat a little bit. I can talk a lot. That's why I was just waiting. But I'm super excited I always feel after something like this, or after a day of this, I always feel like very rejuvenated and ready to go back at it. I think it's important for us to get together in person. It feels way different. Like I've been on Zoom for like 2 years or 3, and it's so, how many years? I don't even know. See what I'm saying? Like I have no time. Yeah, I have no clue. You know what I mean? And I'm so glad that I don't have a teams eating, like I'm done with it. I'm done. You know what I mean? Like I'm done. I like being in person. I like hugging people. I think that's the connection. That's what this is all about for me. So a day like this is I've gotten what I wanted out of it, which is to see humans who are like-minded and doing this amazing work. So thank you all for doing the work that you do. Our people that we support really need it more than ever right now.
Kayla Kensler, thank you so much. I was so nervous. I've never even been to UBC. Yeah, I was like pulling up on my GPS. I was like, what? You know, I was like, where do you park? Yeah, and so early. I said, because like I'm telling you, you want to be early here. I have no idea where I am right now. I was nervous coming into it. You know, I question what I think. You know, I think I know. But I got what I needed today as well. Connection and being able to talk about the stuff that we love to do and the best ways to do it. And I really appreciate Kali's presentation. Excited to hear Trey. And it's like 12:05, so you guys are probably hungry.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Hey guys, welcome back. Hope everyone had a good lunch. My name is Trey Helton. Some people affectionately call me Trey. It's just a nickname. I am the manager at Overdose Prevention Society, located at 141 East Hastings, right beside Insight. And here's some mugshots of me throughout the years. I'd like to thank Kali for helping me with doing like an impromptu PowerPoint presentation last minute. I'd also like to give a land acknowledgement, saying thank you for letting me be here on the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Salish people's land. I am a settler here, and I'm very grateful to be here today. I'm here to talk for an hour. Really, there's no kind of set formula that I have. I've done these things before, where I come into universities and just fly by the seat of my pants. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm supposed to talk a little bit about overdose prevention sites, peer employment, which apparently is a naughty word. People don't like that. But until a different word is made up, I'm going to use the term peer employment a lot, probably. And then I'm going to talk about advocacy through street art around the end of this. So roughly 3 topics. If you guys got any questions, please throw them at me. I'll try to do my best to answer them. I do want to give a warning that some of the slides in this are very graphic. So I want to give a warning of some of the graphic nature that we might see here. I tried to keep it light. There is one that is pretty disturbing, but it's real life. So it is what it is. I'm not trying to offend anyone. Just want to be straightforward. Not trying to offend people. A little bit about me. My name is Trey. I grew up in Richmond, British Columbia, which is a suburb just outside of Metro Vancouver. I was actually born in Alberta, but I moved here when I was 2. So I don't really know anything else. I wasn't born and raised in Vancouver, but Vancouver and Metro Vancouver is all I ever have known. At a young age, I always felt like I didn't belong. The 2 feelings that I identified with most were rejection and abandonment. That's just how I felt. From anyone on the outside looking in, they'd be like, you have parents, you know who your mom and dad are. Like, how could you feel rejection and abandonment? My parents were workaholics. They were never around. And I realized at a young age that if I misbehaved a lot, that I would get the attention that I wanted from them, because they would, smack me around a little bit, which it was the 80s. Eventually, I found other people that felt the same way that I felt rejection, abandonment, anger, and fell in with those guys. And drugs and alcohol became a part of my life from a pretty young age. Moving forward, all I wanted to do was get out of Richmond. You can see, I think this one was like my first adult charge. I don't have any of my mugshots as a child, but that one was I robbed a 7-Eleven at knife point in a drunken haze to get more money to keep going. It ended up getting pleaded down to, I think, theft under and assault. I was on probation for 3 years, like pretty heavy duty, like CSO, which is conditional sentence order, which is like served time in the community. I had like an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. curfew, which really sucks when you're 19 years old. I wasn't allowed to drink. I had to go to AA meetings and get signatures and all that stuff. It was really, really annoying. I felt like my life was over. Eventually, that passed, and I moved out away from Richmond as soon as I could when I was 18, and got a job in a bar. I was working at the Cobalt Motor Inn at 917 Main Street under Wendy 13, punk promoter. It's like disobeying my court order and drinking booze and doing all sorts of stuff. And eventually I started doing drugs. I was like I was the kind of drug user that's like a garbage can drug user. Like I used everything. My favorite drug was more and preferably yours. I didn't really have a particular drug of choice. I just did everything. And in the punk rock community, it kind of feels like, to me, the way I interpreted it, it was like, you know, failure is a Nobel Peace Prize and success is like the enemy. That's just the way I interpreted it. It was like very, very, and I'm not bashing punk rock. I love punk rock. That's just how I interpreted it in my head. And, you know, alcohol and drugs gave me the ability to do like crazy shit. And eventually I met heroin, which took me down pretty fast. I was around 26 years old the first time I used heroin. I'm 40 now, just for reference. Then I found a girl and we were in love and we had something that we both loved, and that was doing drugs together. And I introduced her to heroin. She said, please don't introduce me to heroin because my dad has a problem with that drug, and I feel like I may be predisposed to getting in trouble with it. And I was always like, you know what? Like, you're in control of the drugs. The drugs aren't in control of you. You know what I mean? You can stop whenever you want. Like, don't believe that shit. So we ended up doing dope together. And I truly believed that for a long time, that I was in control. I truly, truly believe that. And eventually we couldn't stop using that drug. We tried to do the geographical cure. My parents moved away from Richmond in about 2007. They moved to Victoria. Victoria is like kind of like the Florida of Canada. It's relatively mild climate, newlywed, nearly dead, a lot of old people, a lot of young families. And we kind of hopped on a bus and just showed up there. And we blamed Vancouver. We're like, Vancouver's the problem. The downtown east side's the problem. All the friends that give us drugs, they're the problem. As soon as we got off the bus on Douglas Street, as soon as we got off the bus, there was like a drug dealer like across the street, like saw us and like knew we were going to be his best customers. It was like, there's like not even words exchanges. It's like, and we had to dial the dope driver immediately. And, you know, we showed up at my folks' house and we're like, can we stay in the basement? And just kept doing drugs. And I seriously thought I was in control. It was like the illusion of control. It was like, I can quit using heroin by using a cocktail of like ketamine and ecstasy. So like, I'm in control. And I would be using these party drugs or soft drugs, and like we get 2 weeks off heroin. And then, you know, we'd be like, well, our tolerance is lower. Like maybe if we did dope now, after 2 weeks, like we'd actually get high again. And then it would just start the whole fucking thing all over again. It's part of the language, I swear a lot. You know, basically, we couldn't stop, and we came up with a brilliant idea that we would have a kid. Maybe if we had a child, we could stop using drugs and we'd get responsible. That didn't work, it didn't turn out. And we used to the whole pregnancy. It was slowed down a bit, but it never stopped. We were sneaking behind each other's back and using drugs. And sometimes we do it in front of each other, but it was slowed down a little bit. And as soon as the kid came out, it was just right back to like exactly where it was before. It only slowed it down a little bit. And the first time my child was taken by MCFD, which stands for Ministry of Children and Family Development, was when he was 10 months old. Things are different in Victoria. When you call 911 for an emergency call, you get police, fire, and ambulance. Whereas in Vancouver, the VPD have decided that they don't need to intervene on overdoses. So we got the VPD. We were going under. I called 911. The last thing I remember was calling 911 because we didn't have naloxone available, and I knew my girlfriend was going to OD. And then I woke up to VPD taking the kid out of the house and telling me I was a piece of shit human being, and it was awful. It was one of the worst days, and that's how I discovered recovery. So I'm going to talk about some stuff that people may not necessarily like. I know there's some people that don't like me talking about recovery, but I like recovery, so I'm going to talk about recovery. So my girlfriend was trying to get the kid back. She said, Trey, you really don't seem too concerned about getting the kid back. I'm trying to get the kid back. I can't hang out with you. And whenever I hang out with you, I do drugs. And basically, She's like, I can't tell you that you're an addict, but I think you're an addict, and I'm going to these 12-step recovery meetings called Narcotics Anonymous. And if you want to hang out with me, that's where you can see me. So I went to Narcotics Anonymous. I identified as a newcomer. I thought it was culty. I thought it was a cult. They had candles. It was a candlelight meeting. They told me I was the most important person in the room. I'm like, cult, 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 cult. It's cult. And basically, I was open enough to listen to them talk, even though I didn't think they were anything like me. They talked about the same feelings that I had, the same feelings of loneliness, isolation, abandonment, and rejection. And something in the back of my head said that if it ever gets bad enough, I know where to go, and it's free, because I like free. I don't like paying for shit. And so, you know, they say the disease of addiction, another controversial subject, is it's a progressive, incurable, and can be fatal. And definitely got worse for me, as you can see in my mugshots. You know, it's like I'm a meme. I'm a drug meme. Like, don't do crystal meth and heroin. I never even liked crystal meth. I eventually started doing it because somebody told me that I could kick doing heroin with crystal meth. Crystal meth was more affordable. It was cheaper. It was relatively available. And if I did enough of it, it would take away the physical withdrawal. So I've actually quit heroin with crystal meth for like 2 weeks, and then it just was like awake for 2 weeks just doing meth. And then I went back to heroin because I thought my tolerance was low. And you know, eventually, you know, my girlfriend moved with the kid to Alberta, where it's very stiff penalties for drug use. Like, I think, you know, they're not like lax like PC, where it's like, oh, he's a poor drug user, give him probation. It's like, lock him up for like years and years and years. And she ended up taking the kid to Alberta, and she was caught in a stolen car selling fentanyl and crystal meth. And he was put in the ministry care, and I went back to Vancouver, and I'm just like, I'm gonna die on the downtown east side. I don't care, right? Like, so I came back, and I started getting arrested. Like, I started going to jail, like back to back. It was like humiliating, like so humiliating. Like going to jail, being released, going back to the same unit, and I was always on a mental health unit because I was nuts. It's where all the punks end up. It's on the mental health unit in jail. Just so you know, going back to the same mental health unit, or we call it the bug unit. That's what it's called on the street, bugs, bug power. Back to the mental health unit, and within 9 hours, like I was only on the street for 9 hours, and I'd be like back in jail, and they'd be like making fun of me. They'd be like, "You really like it here," and like, you know what I mean? Couldn't stay away. That's not even the record. 9 hours is not a record. Someone's beat me. Anyway, but you know, it was humiliating, and I was in jail. I had the illusion of control too. I was like, you know, the guy in the cell next to me, like, I hate to ruin the surprise, but there's dope in jail, right? It gets in there regularly, and the guy in the cell next to me was selling my drug of choice, which is heroin, and he'd always come out of his cell like scratching every morning, and I'd look over at him, and I'd be like, I had no desire to do heroin, because the only way I like doing heroin is with a needle. I like doing IV heroin. There's like smoking it, snorting it is a waste of drugs. And there was no needle on that particular unit. Sometimes we get a needle on the unit that we would all share. And there was no needle on the unit. So I was like, I'm not doing it. It's a waste of time. And I thought I was in control. And every time I got out of jail, every time I intended to go straight and narrow. But every time I got released, straight back to the downtown east side, an overdose, like immediately, within an hour and a half of being like dropped off at the bus loop in Maple Ridge, and never failed. Eventually I called my mom from jail, and I was like, you can see I'm a picker. I was like, when I like to do meth, I pick my skin, and called my mom from jail, and I was like, you know, she's like, I'm glad you're there. And I was like, why? She's like, it's the only time I know you're going to be alive in jail. So it's when I'm not going to get the call of you being dead. And, you know, she's like, do you even know what's going on? She's like, your kid's been in foster care for the last 3 years. Your baby mama is looking at 5 years in the penitentiary in Alberta. Your father's dying. We hate each other. We're basically divorced, but we won't get divorced because it's better financially if we live in the same house trying to kill each other. And she's like, and I got cancer. I got cancer in one of my breasts, and I got cancer in my stomach, and shit's fucked up. And I was like, Mom, can I come home? And she was like, yeah, sure, come home, sure. So I came home. I had every intention of stopping, but I didn't. You know what I mean? Like immediately as soon as I got home, I was doing fucked up shit. Like I found a drug dealer, really fucking dangerous guy, and I was like, you can have my room. I'll sleep in the shed in the backyard. You just give me drugs every day. So, you know, my mom found this random drug dealer looking at my room with like one of his girlfriends, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? That's just one example. I was like, another thing I would do would be like, I had rules that I was only going to break into houses 12 blocks away from my mom's house, so I wouldn't bring heat to her. But eventually I got so desperate that I literally broke into my neighbor's house, who's a roofer. I stole all his roofing equipment, and then I was selling his roofing equipment on my mom's lawn on a Wednesday morning, having a fucking garage sale on Wednesday. And just so you guys know, you're not supposed to have garage sales on Wednesdays. You're supposed to have them on Saturday and Sunday, not Wednesday. And you know, eventually my mom was just like, get the fuck out. She's like, get the fuck out, you're a loser. She's like, just fucking beat it. And she's like, I wanted you here while I was going through cancer treatment so that I could sleep well at night. And I thought things were gonna be different, but they're not. She's just like, get the fuck out. And I left. And that's when I had what my sponsor calls my moment of clarity. It was just before my 33rd birthday. Mentally, I was probably 16, I'm just gonna be honest. But I realized that I'd been on the streets for probably 7 to 5 years. I was like, spent a lot of birthdays, like homeless, pushing a shopping cart. And I realized that I had failed at trying to commit suicide as a drug user, trying to die. This death row I was going to show everyone that they should be sorry and feel bad for me, and that I couldn't even die right as a dope fiend. And suddenly I realized that I was going to have my 43rd birthday, my 53rd birthday, and my 63rd birthday doing the grind every day on the street. And everyone I cared about would probably be dead by that point. And that awareness of like what my reality was probably going to be, that I was cursed, was more scary than anything else. And that's when I ran back, literally pushed my shopping cart to a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous and went in, and I was willing to drink the Kool-Aid. At that point, I was like, give me all the Kool-Aid. I'll drink all the Kool-Aid. And I was willing to take all the suggestions that 12-step recovery program laid out for me. And the reason that I'm alive today, and this goes into the next subject, is because places like Insight and Overdose Prevention Society kept me alive long enough so that I could get to that point of desperation where I was willing to make a change in my life. Now, everyone's story isn't the same. There's a lot of people that I know that are institutionalized, where they're like death before detox. You know what I mean? Like I'll never choose recovery. That's fine, that's cool. Those people should have safe supply. This is just my story. This is what I live. And I'm very grateful to places like Overdose Prevention Society and Insight for, you know, non-stigmatizing me as a drug user. You know, like I lived on the street in front of Insight for 3 years, flopping around like a fish. Like I was that guy. I was that guy. And, you know, like some of my own friends were the staff at PHS, at Insight, the ran Insight, that treated me like a person. Some of them even invited me into their house. And they knew I was stealing shit too. When I left, they'd be like, come on. We're not mad. We knew you were gonna do this. Basically, I want to talk about OPS and Overdose Prevention Society. When I got clean, clean, another dirty word, but when I got sober through 12-step recovery programs, you know, the first 2 years I followed everything. They told me to stay away from places where people got high, stay away from people that got high. All my old friends, I couldn't go see them. I was powerless. I get wasted if I went near them. I had to get new friends in recovery. I could only hang out with the cult members. You know what I mean? I could only go to call meetings 5 a day. You know what I mean? I tried to do a lot of shit like that I didn't want to do. You know what I mean? They told me just go to meetings all the time. And doing the step work, this is another thing. I'm not like trying to like give any props. This is just my story. Doing the step work through that program was what gave me the ability to live life on life's terms. Basically like facing all the trauma that I had and like talking about it with another human being and finding new solutions to live in. There's a lot of people in recovery that can't go near people that use or people that use drugs just because they know that it's dangerous for them, and that's cool. You know, in the first 2 years of my recovery, all I wanted was freedom from addiction and freedom from being on drugs. And you know, like the reality of it is, like when I was on Main and Hastings, like I was trapped in a 3-block radius. Like that was a prison for me. The only time I ever left that neighborhood was to go 1 block over to Chinatown to break into cars, steal shit, come back and sell it, or go over into Gastown, break into cars, steal shit, come back and sell it. So the first 2 years in recovery, I did everything they told me to. And then I was just like, you know what? I don't want to live a life of fear. I don't want to live this life where like, if I see someone using drugs, I have to run away from them. Like that doesn't feel like a life anymore. And, you know, I saw other people that were in the recovery circuit that were able to go to like concerts and like stay sober and not get high. And I started hanging out with those people, and it was like a little bit at a time for me. Like I would go to a concert, I would have 2 accountability buddies with me, and they would be like, if you feel triggered, you have to tell us. And like I would tell them, we go in for 5 minutes, they'd be like, I'm triggered, and we'd be like, let's go. So we leave. But the next time I went to a punk show, I was able to stay for 10 minutes. And then the next time, 15 minutes. And then I was just like, I gotta stay busy. I gotta stay busy doing something. So I would go to the bar and I would just play pool and I would drink soda, and the bartender liked me because I was drinking soda. They liked me more. I wasn't an asshole. I wasn't a drunk, bad person. Not that getting drunk is bad, but I'm a bad person when I drink. That's just me. Anyway, and then I was in Victoria and I moved back to Vancouver. And you know, like if you're in recovery, a lot of recovery houses say stay away from the downtown east side. You're red zone. You can't go near it. If you go anywhere near while you're in the treatment center, you will be kicked out. You're gonna get high. So I was back in Vancouver, my hometown. I came back here. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I would always wake up and find myself in the downtown east side. Like literally, like, what am I doing here? Oh my God. The downtown east side to me is like a place of comfort. And I spent so much time there, like lurching back and forth in the alleyways, that like it is home to me. And I didn't know what else to do. I really wanted to get a job with Portland Hotel Society that runs a lot of the nonprofits. I went to them and said, hey, can I work with you guys? And they said, that's great and everything, but you have a pretty bad record at Insight as a former participant, and we're concerned that if we hired you, that you would relapse. You only got 2 years clean, and we just don't want we don't want to put you in danger, and we're concerned. So like, come back in a year if you're still clean, in 3 years, come back and try. I was determined, and they wouldn't hire me. So as I was leaving PHS headquarters, and they basically told me to kick rocks, I ran into former ops manager, Ronnie Greig. Ronnie was one of the only people that was nice to me that I remember when I was a participant at Insight. And he said, hey man, if Insight won't hire you, why don't you come over and try and get a job at Ops? Ops is a peer run organization where it's very low barrier. So I'm going to give a little backstory on Ops. Some of you guys know it. And I'm just going to say it anyway. So Ops started in 2016. It was founded by Sarah Blythe, our current founder and executive director. She's one of my favorite people in the whole world. And basically what happened was Sarah was manager of the downtown east side street market in 2016. So Thanksgiving weekend, Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, October of 2016 black market fentanyl hit the streets. Insight had recorded of, I think, 32 overdoses on Friday, 38 on Saturday, and like 36 on Sunday, Thanksgiving weekend. So to give you guys some context of how many overdoses that is, usually at ops, like our stats, sometimes we have 0 overdoses a day. If it's check week and everyone gets their income assistance check, sometimes it's like 2 or 3. That's like max. So you have to imagine that, how many overdoses that was. And then consider how much open street use there is, So it was basically like a war zone. Like one person goes down, they go, hey, we got another one over here, I need help. Another one over here, we got another one over here, we're stunning, another one over here, please help, please help. People were running around like the chickens with their heads cut off. So Sarah was the manager of the Downtown Eastside Street Market. The Downtown Eastside Street Market was created by the City of Vancouver and VANDU, which stands for the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users. It was created to alleviate some of the sidewalk sales. If you guys don't know this, it's illegal to vend and sell products on the Downtown East Side without street seller vendor license, whatever the hell it's called. Basically, the cops will come up, they'll tell you to pack up your open display of merchandise and kick rocks, otherwise you're getting a ticket. So they had this lot that was on the 62 East Hastings lot, and it's open from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. And basically you can come in, you can rent a table for $2.50 a day in the morning, you can line up and you can legally display and sell your merchandise. Now, to some people who are street entrenched, $2.50 is like $250. Like that's reality. Like I would rather spend $2.50 on drugs going towards what I need rather than like, you know, renting a table for a couple hours, right? Like I'll risk the sidewalk sale ticket, that's fine. So Sarah was managing the market at that point, and basically what happened was the fentanyl crisis happened. People were running to the market saying that we have overdoses, we need help. You know, there was overdoses within the market where people were trading merchandise for drugs and overdosing right there. And basically Sarah said, we have to do something. We have to do something right now. Like this is a public health emergency. And what happened was she started a tent. You got to find the loophole. So can I get the tent slide? All right, so this is the very first ops that was created by Sarah Blythe and Ann Livingston. So there's Sarah in a tent. It's a granulated picture. It's not the greatest quality, but it's what I got. It's basically like a medic tent. That was the loophole. It's a 10 by 10 square tent with 2 tables for people to come in and say what we're using or what they think they're using. We watch them. There was Narcan kits to reverse overdoses. They didn't have oxygen tanks at the time, and they collected data. And it's really, really important to collect data with stuff because that's how you get funding. That's why the VPD gets so much money, is because the one thing the VPD is really, really good at is collecting data. They're really, really good at collecting data. So Sarah and Ann were collecting data on how many visits they were getting and how many overdoses they were reversing. The City of Vancouver found out that she was doing this, and they're like, you can't just make an insight wherever you want. That's not okay. You have to go through the Grand Supreme Court of Canada and get the jurisdiction that Insight got. Sarah's like, well, it's a crisis. We have to do something. It's my civic duty to help someone. If they're dying, I have to help them. They said, you can't do that. They threatened legal action. Basically, BPD came down, told her to pack up. Okay, Sarah, come on, get out of here. Pack up the tent, tell her to leave. BPD would leave and Sarah would pop up the tent on the other side of the street. Try to stop me. Basically, ops started as an act of civil disobedience. So unfortunately, something I've learned is the only way we can get things done sometimes is by doing them without asking for permission. So eventually, Sarah, if you guys know a little bit about Sarah, she's the Parks Board Commissioner. She's had lots of experience with the media. She knows which media are reputable organizations to talk to. Some of them are trash, global trash. Some of them are good, like CBC or the Globe and Mail. It's good reporting. Generally, they talk about a story, they don't lead you to something, they just tell the story the way it is and let you decide, not like leading you to something, which is trash journalism. So basically she went to the right media sources, the media got behind her, and eventually the province got behind her. Eventually they got a portable with 6 tables and started going from there. The portable was over at the West 58 lot, and then the Sheldon Hotel, which was at 58 East Hastings, opened up the commercial space. It's hard to rent commercial space in the downtown east side. There's not a lot of success for commercial business down there, so there's a lot of empty storefronts. So they gave her the indoor space. At one point, we were the largest safe injection site with safe inhalation site in the downtown east side. At one point, we had 12 safe inhalation tables, an outdoor facility with just a gazebo and some privacy boarding, and 12 indoor tables at 58 East Hastings. We are an entirely peer-run organization, which means that we hire drug users from the community. The 2 requirements to get a job at OPS: current former drug user, lives in the downtown east side. That's it. That's it. That's all it is. OPS pays a $10 an hour honorarium. It's not very much money. It's considered volunteer work. The reason that is so that it's the loophole, like I said, find the loophole, so that it doesn't have to be reported to income assistance. We're the only peer organization that pays cash out the same day, so we're highly sought after. We provide a safe hustle as opposed to a dangerous hustle. Some of the dangerous hustles, drug debt collecting. A lot of people do that where they just go around and collect debts. Sex work, low track sex work. Stealing bikes, boosting, which is like boosting means going into stores and stealing stuff, coming back down. Those are some of them. Digging through dumpsters for trash is also dangerous. If you're considered a home bum, you could be made a target. So basically this is one safe hustle that drug users can put in their pocket and come in. How we differ from Insight. Insight is considered an SCS. So it's a supervised consumption site. It has the Supreme Court of Canada ruling. OPS is made on an emergency basis. So if I can give you like a broader definition of that, it means that Insight just signed a lease until 2031. So Insight will be at 139 East Hastings until 2031. OPS re-signs its lease on a yearly basis, essentially. Meaning that if the crisis were to stop tomorrow, we would most likely be phased out, which is a good thing because the crisis sucks and I'm sick of people dying. Insight has some more stiff regulations because they are an SCS where we're a bit more lax. They have a very institutional feel where there's key fobs in and out. OPS doesn't have that. There's no protection, no locking doors. People just come in and waltz in whenever they want. It's problematic sometimes. Insight has a ban list. They have very good communication with if someone's a violent offender or has been rude or has assaulted someone. It's very, very good at keeping people out. OPS doesn't have that. I've seen the ban list at Insight. All of them are OPS staff members. All of them work at OPS. All of them come to OPS. And recently I want to share a story. I do naloxone training. I did a naloxone training at 312 Main Street, which is the old police station. And a woman came up to me after and she said, I really want to thank you, Trey. I want to thank you and your team. My brother is back on the reserve. He's got 4 months off drugs. He's an asshole. She's like, I don't know any other way to say it, but I want to thank you because he's my brother and I love him. Even though he's a difficult person, he's alive today because you guys gave him the space to hang out and be safe when nobody else would. So when they talk about like harm reduction and like low barrier care, there are some barriers to Insight. OPS is more like no barrier. We get all the people that nobody wants and we give them a place to come in and hang out. Insight has some regulations too. Recently, I've been made aware that their passing regulation has been changed. So before on Insight, when you come into the front area. Let's say me and my friend come in, we just got some drugs, and I say, okay, give me my half of the dope so I can prep it. If the person gives me that half in the passing area, they say, get out, 24-hour ban. Say, what? Say, get out, 24-hour ban, you just passed in here. I say, I'll see you when you get out of work, man. I'll be waiting outside with bear spray. You know what I mean? Like, this is my living room. You can't kick me out of my living room. This is bullshit. So there can be more assaults against PHS staff due to some of the strict regulations that they have to enforce. The passing rule has been changed recently in the injection room, where drug users are allowed, or participants are allowed, to pass drugs to one another. Ops also has a doctoring thing where drug users are allowed to shoot each other up. Doctor is the street terminology for shooting your friend up. So you can say, hey, I feel comfortable with this person, he can doctor me. There's no doctoring in Insight. They have a nurse for that. Some of the good things about Insight is that they do have a nurse. They have a nurses station. Ops doesn't have that. Insight often doubles as a walk-in clinic for downtown Eastside residents that are currently trapped in that 3-block neighborhood. Whereas, like, you can go to the graphic content stuff now. Graphic nature warning. So I'm going to go to the first image. This is my brother's legs. This is something called compartment syndrome. So many people in the downtown east side end up getting very dangerous infections like endocarditis, an infection of the heart valve, or maybe they don't want to leave the downtown east side because you got to stay close to the dope, or they get stigmatized in a hospital setting. They don't like being there. Insight often doubles as a place where they feel comfortable, where they can walk in and see a doctor. So compartment syndrome is something that I didn't know of until it happened to my brother. It's when the compartment holds the muscle gets infected. This happened to him because all his veins on his arms were gone, and he started shooting drugs in his legs. And unfortunately, gravity doesn't work so well with drugs in the legs. So the next one is super graphic. You can go to that. Warning. This was taken with permission. I never take photos of people's infections without permission. This is a ops participant who comes in regularly. You can smell the infection from 10 feet away. This is another example of why Insight is good. He may not want to leave the downtown east side, but sometimes I can encourage participants to come with me to Insight to see the nurse, where they may be willing to get care. So what else have we got in there? So this is Smokey D's art. I will get to this in a second. You can just leave it on this. I'll explain this in a sec, but this is the next slide. I just didn't want to leave it on the infection stuff because that's disturbing. But back to Insight. The difference between Insight and Ops is that they have a walk-in clinic option as a nurse's station there. Unfortunately, some people are banned, so they can't always go in there. That's something that Ops is currently looking at, is getting a low barrier nursing station in our facility where the people that are banned from Insight can see a nurse at Ops. That's something we're working on. Another thing about Insight that's good is that on the second floor, they have detox. They have on-site detox. On-site detox is probably the best detox in the Lower Mainland, in my opinion, because you can smoke cigarettes 24/7. A lot of the detoxes within the Lower Mainland are moving towards away from smoking, anti-smoking facilities as a health facility. The detox at Cordova Detox at 119 East Cordova. Smoking has been moved to 2 hours out of the day, which is inhumane in my opinion. If you're trying to kick drugs like fentanyl and crystal meth, you should be allowed to smoke as many cigarettes as you want. When you're ready, if you're ready. The other detox is Vancouver Detox, which is on Great Northern Way. It's hard to get people into detox now because of the benzo dope. So the supply, is so tainted, and there's benzos within the drugs. If you guys don't know, like alcohol addiction can cause severe DTs and dangerous, where they can go into seizures. It's the same thing with benzodiazepines. Some people don't like benzos in their fentanyl, some people do. It's all supply and demand. Unfortunately, it's 50-50. And now the newest thing that we're seeing is tranq dope. 6 out of 10 samples have xylene in it, which is an alternative to benzodiazepine that has just come out recently. And it's really, really bad. When there's benzos in the system, you have to go through being in a health facility like the Great Northern White Detox, so it becomes problematic. But back to on-site, if you want to get into on-site, all you have to do is you can call the number and ask to get into on-site, which is 1-866-658-1221, or you can walk in Insight every morning between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. and say, hey, I'd like on the detox list. You have to consistently come in over and over and over again saying, I want on the detox list. Once someone misses a day, you get bumped ahead of them. And then eventually, sometimes, you know, check week, when everyone leaves because they're getting money, they go, guess what? We just got 10 openings. You can come upstairs right now if you want. The detox up there is great because you have your own private room, which gives you a little bit of integrity. I know when I was coming off drugs, I was frequently crapping my pants and people would pick on me because I was defecating myself. So when you go to on-site, you get your own separate room where you can have some privacy and a little bit of integrity. You get your own bathroom. Whereas in comparison to Cordova Detox and 119 East Hastings, it's a big open room where you hear everyone on different cots going through all different kinds of, you know, stages of withdrawal. Where I remember being in Cordova Detox one time, the guy had RLS, which stands for restless leg syndrome, so bad that his leg was twitching and he kicked a hole through the drywall. Another time, I woke up in Cordova Detox to a guy with his hands around my neck, just about to strangle me. He was in sleep paralysis. He actually, it's like, he didn't know what he was doing either. I just opened my eyes and started screaming, and then he opened his eyes and started screaming. So that's the good thing about on-site detox, is that you get your own private rooms with your own private bathroom. You don't have someone trying to strangle you at the night. You can smoke 24/7, and they don't advertise this, but smoke weed there. You can also get edibles, which is really, really helpful for me when I was kicking heroin. Marijuana helped me a lot. When I was trying to kick, and I ended up using Suboxone and weed was really, really helpful. Once you get through the detox at on-site, you can go upstairs to the outpatient facility where you have a certain amount of responsibility. You get your own room. It's shared bathrooms up on the 3rd floor, but you have to go to certain outpatient stuff. You have to clean per week. You get some structure. If you relapse up there and you piss dirty, unfortunately, you get kicked out. Sometimes they've made exceptions, but generally that's the rule. So Insight, I do say, has the best detox in the Lower Mainland. It is hard though, because the cage where you go out and smoke on the 2nd floor, you're looking into the ops smoking tent. You're watching all your friends get high. So it can be triggering. It is hard. Ops is currently located beside Insight at 141 East Hastings, where we have a large indoor facility with a chill area where people can come and hang out. The ambulance service really likes us because frequently people don't want to go to the hospital, or they're overloaded with other stuff and they can't take people to the hospital, but it is okay for paramedics, BC paramedics, to bring in people and say, hey, can we leave them at ops? Can we watch them? Can you guys watch them in your chill area? So we do help. Ops helps alleviate some of the hospital overflow for overdoses. That's one of the things that we provide. We also have the smoking tent with 8 tables in the back, which is an old parking lot. It was 2 parking stalls at 141. So that's how ops difference. I want to talk quickly about the last 12 minutes. I'm going to talk about advocacy through street art. So when we were at our old location, at 58 East Hastings, Sarah Blythe walked out into the alley one day and said, you know, this is a really dark, shitty, gray place. And this is a horrible place for people to die. Why can't we take care of our space and take care of our alleyway and make it nice? So that's what we did. Sarah has all the great ideas. She's really good at coming up with ideas. And I'm a good supporter, and I can always help Sarah with her ideas and what she wants to do. So basically, that's how we started the Downtown East Side Alley mural project, we started a GoFundMe campaign. We found local graffiti artists like Smokey Devil, Rival, Josie, and we raised money and we cleared walls for them and made it a nice bright space. Can you play the video, please? This is a 5-minute video.
Something I can look at it about taking back space. It's instead of having some dirty wall, you know what I mean? Like you can look at it as a canvas and then it's put up there for everyone to enjoy, right? You know, we need more color in the world, and that's what we're trying to do here in the downtown east side is color it up. You know what I mean? My name's Trey. Some people call me Ashtray. I'm the supervisor at Overdose Prevention Society. I'm also a volunteer coordinator, and right now I'm doing management on this mural project, the Downtown East Side Mural Project, 2019, in the alleyway known as Crack Alley, where you primarily go to buy crack. In Vancouver's downtown east side on the 0 block, and it's a heavily used alley for drug use, and we're trying to make it nice for people who live in the alley.
These are my first murals, actually. I just recently discovered about maybe a year and a half ago that I could draw things that I didn't know I could. Basically, like I guess an undiscovered talent. My whole life has changed. I'm doing tattoos and murals in an alley. It's really mind blowing. I've been down here for my life. I was more for my mom and my uncle, but not forgotten. Lots of edible, lots of friends, fentanyl. There's a lot of good people down here. There's a lot of lost souls down here. There's a lot of people that need help. And addiction is not just a choice; it's a disease. There's a lot of people who don't realize how dangerous this place is until they experience it firsthand. If you're not careful back here, your time will be up, you know?
This piece I did right here is all about a guy that's ODing on the ground, right? He's on his back on the ground, and this guy's kind of like what we're talking about like that. With a Narcan kid trying to help him out. It's how Narcan kids save people's lives, right? Trying to get the vibe right. They're trying to leave a message of some sort, right? Like, you know, something, just so someone can quickly read it and check it out, and maybe think twice about what be a city for kid, you know what I mean? Trying to bring like a, where you're kind of outlook into a dark area, you know what I mean?
Everyone judges it a different way, but there's every type of person down here. There's some of the most amazing people down here, and people kind of judge it one way when there's literally every the sort of the Asian theme because we're in Chinatown. It's a self-reflection of a girl. The bottom half is negative. So pretty much you have a choice which to choose, positive or negative.
So the goal of the GoFundMe is to round up some money to pay downtown East Side artists who live in the community, within the community, respectable artist fee to paint and do what they love, and it's therapy, and it's a really healthy thing for a lot of people. I guess I'm a little old to be picking up a spray paint can at 37, but I really enjoy it, and it gives me a sense of peace after I've completed something that everyone can enjoy.
It's not all as bad as people think, right? We're not all like, you know, there are drug addicts that are out killing people and stuff like that, you know? I mean, there's a lot of good people down here, right? Just get people to push back decisions, that's all, you know what I mean? Come down and have a look, I mean, it's not as bad as you think. I think you might enjoy it, you know what I mean?
All right, so that kind of sums up how the Downtown East Side Alley Grill project started. It was inspired by Sarah. She got rolling, and she was inspired by our boy here, Smokey D. Some of you guys might know Smokey Devil. He's been doing advocacy through street art for the last 25 years. He's spent time in jail for it, but he keeps doing it. So this wall right here is located at 488 Carroll. It's been donated to him. It's been his PSA wall, public service announcement wall for the last, I believe, 10 years. He's owned that wall. He manages it. He puts up whatever he wants. This is currently what's on there. It's a memorial for a skater who recently died, Caleb Morin. There was 4 stabbings in one day on March 3rd. And Caleb was the one that lost his life, unfortunately. I believe it was the 5th homicide of the year. And Smokey wants the stabbings to stop. It says too much violence, 4 stabbings in one day. And then he added not okay underneath. This is a photo before he said not okay. But this one right here, this is his other PSA board. The city has donated him PSA boards. This one is located at 312 Main Street, which is the old police station. This is a missing persons awareness for a missing Indigenous woman named Courtney Whale, who was found alive. Success story. She was found in Victoria 2 weeks after she was officially declared missing. So a happy ending to that. If you can slide forward, this is some more of his stuff. So he just keeps going over the same boarding. This is the Tent City Awareness one on 312 Main. This is his missing persons poster to raise awareness for Tatiana Harrison, who unfortunately was found deceased on a boat in Richmond and declared not suspicious, but it's definitely suspicious if you ask me. So Smokey's been doing a lot of advocacy work. I've been helping him. You can go to the next slide. This is another memorial on his 488 for a big time downtown east side advocate, Angel Gates, rest in peace. Angel was my friend. She was an outspoken person for drug awareness, for missing and murdered Indigenous Two-Spirit awareness. Rest in peace, Angel. She's big. I can't choke over her. Excuse me. Yeah. A lot of people lost. Here is some of Smokey's outreach to Chinatown. Recently, global media was trying to pitch the graffiti overflow from the downtown east side that has spread into Chinatown and kind of divide, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, divide the two communities to turn Chinatown against the downtown east side. And Smokey did some outreach and brought the two communities together and said, you know, not all graffiti artists are bad, and we can help. And basically what Smokey's done is graffiti abatement by hiring a well-respected graffiti artist who has done his time to do a mural on your wall shutters. Other graffiti artists won't destroy it unless they start fighting with each other. But everybody loves Smokey. Someone's gonna fight with Smokey. You can go to the next one. Recently, Smokey was awarded his own day. For all his community service, and he deserves it. I can't think of more of a deserving person. There he is getting his day. So March 11th is officially Smokey D Day. That's something that Sarah Blight helped organize to make sure that Smokey was acknowledged. He is a drug user, everyday drug user. He is using an unregulated supply, and he might not be around forever. That's the reality of it. So it was very important for the city to recognize him while he's still here, instead of him passing and everyone saying, you know, Smokey was such a great person. Why can't we acknowledge him while he's around? So Sarah helped make that happen. Go to the next slide. Smokey, when he found out that he was getting a day acknowledged, he somehow misinterpreted it to him getting the keys for the city. He was upset that he wasn't getting the keys to the city. I'm like, dude, you're getting your own day. It's a big deal. And he's like, but I want the keys to the city. And I was like, okay. So I made him his own keys to the city. I went to Michael's, I got a plaque, I got some bolt cutters, I spray painted them gold. So that's Smokey with his 16-year-old son, little Smokey. Smokey, big Smokey and little Smokey outside Beat Street Records. You can go to the next slide. So this is another thing that Ops is responsible for. So we get moved around frequently. We don't have a permanent space. Like I said, we re-sign our contract on a yearly basis, whereas Insight's going to be there for 10 years. We get moved around frequently, and one of the spaces that we got moved to was the parking lot owned by Imperial Parking at 99 West Pender. It was boarded off with privacy boards that we covered in graffiti, tasteful graffiti, around it. And then I saw the Arco wall, this giant wall that was just this nasty, like cream color covered in bird shit and moss. And I was like, we got to do something about this. So we got the city after having the Downtown Eastside Alley mural project in 2019. I already had city contacts to help make murals possible to get them signed off. Atira Housing owns this building, they signed off on it. It was the first mural of its kind where the city signed off on something without a preliminary sketch. So usually they want to know exactly what's going on the wall. This one came together organically. We're just gonna go slowly, 15 to 20 foot size large graffiti pieces or burners, full color, moving upward. When we got past the second story, we realized that there was an electrical cord going from the Pattison sign all the way across to the alley, which was problematic. So we didn't know what to do with that. Basically, we would have had to pay BC Hydro $6,000 to put like some foam pool noodles on it to make it safe for a lift to be there, like a bucket lift, an 80-foot boom bucket lift, to be within a 3-foot radius of that small voltage wire. So what I did was, Sarah has friends in Mural Fest. Sarah Blythe connected me with Mural Fest, and one thing I can say about Mural Fest that is cool is they're really good about sharing information. They weren't gatekeepers. They weren't like, they never saw me as competition. They were like, yeah, this is what happens when we have a power line. So what Mural Fest does is when they scope a wall or a prospective mural, is they take into account if there's power lines in the way, because power lines will take up a large amount of the budget, getting them safely covered by BC Hydro. So sometimes if there's power lines in front of a really great wall, they won't take it. So he says, one of the cheats that Mural Fest found to do with power lines is do paint spray. So if there's a wall that they want, but there's like power lines in the way, they'll spray with paint. So it'll be like a paint blend behind the wire. There's not intricate design or detail. And then above the wire, that's where the intricate detail comes in. So we decided, since there's a wire there, a type of graffiti piece is called a roller. So it's used rollers, like wall rollers. And we decided that we were going to do a large roller where the wire was in the 80-foot space. Sarah Blythe said, one thing you can do to create public outreach, once again, another Sarah idea, was start the Coalition of Graffiti Writers. So we started a webpage called the Coalition of Graffiti Writers. This is nothing new. Sarah knew about this because she helped make skate parks legal. Making skate parks legal, they started the Coalition of Skate Parks, of skateboarders, as an outreach point for parks boards commissioners to talk to the skateboarding community. So we did this on Facebook. We put it out to the community. We said we have an 80-foot space. We put it out on the Downtown Eastside updates page with 10,000 people on there and said, what would you guys like to see? We put it out to community. One thing you got to do to get backing is bring your haters with you. Find a way to make them feel like they're involved. So a lot of people in the Downtown Eastside do appreciate graffiti, but there's some people that don't. Overwhelming input was that they wanted to see something indigenous themed in the centerpiece. Overwhelming was a land acknowledgement. That's a lot of letters. That's a lot of letters to do with a roller. Really, really, really fine work, a lot of letters. So we simplified it down to land back. Anyone who knows what land back actually means, it's a movement. It means keeping Indigenous teachings, keeping Indigenous traditions. It's about keeping Indigenous things alive and appreciating it. Some people don't understand. Unfortunately, while we were doing this, we had a lot of negative peanut gallery people coming by and said, "Oh, what's it going to say?" And we say land back, and they'd say, "Oh, you're not going to get your land back." Good thinking. There was unfortunately, a lot of negative things that were said while we did it, but I think overwhelming people appreciated it, and we ended up finishing. We did a lot of crowdfunding with GoFundMe campaign. We did a lot of painting with Indigenous graffiti artists. There's, I think, 7 Indigenous graffiti artists in total. Out of, I think there's 36 graph artists on here, and 7 of them are Indigenous. It was all crowdfunded by people within the community. One of the people that helped me with this was the former bouncer at the Regent in Balmoral Hotel, rest in peace, Bruce Robertson. He helped me from the ground up, prep this wall, scrape off all the moss, the bird shit, cover it with a fresh coat of gray, all the way up. Rest in peace, Bruce. He was one of our peer employees at Ops. You can go to the picture of Kevin Lyons, please. So this is Kevin Lyons. Unfortunately, the reality of Ops is that we lose a lot of people. We saved a lot of lives, but a lot of our peer employees have passed on to the point where we're doing constant memorials, sometimes 3 at a time. That's the reality of it, and it's really, really sad. And Kevin was one of my friends that passed, and he worked in Ops, and it's a really sad story. His sister wasn't able to make it down, and he had no one to pack up his things after his landlord found him dead in his apartment. So I had to go do that. I had to go pack up everything for him and make sure that his son got it. So that's just some of the things that I do in my spare time. Like, I'm always working. I don't really get a lot of time. And you know, the reality is like, I ended up relapsing, like Rachel talked about it. I was working too much, and I didn't see the signs. I should have seen the signs. I had 6 years and 10 months. I started chain smoking in November. That should have been a sign. I wasn't aware of it. And then I ended up picking up December 5th. Currently I have 90 days clean, so I'm moving forward again. And trying not to work so hard, trying not to work all the time, trying to do healthy stuff. I'd like to thank Tara, for making sure that I do healthy stuff. What was the last stuff there? This is another thing that we've done recently is, Sarah, I made this graffiti piece, and it's, you know, Butthead overdosing, and Beavis is smoking some crystal meth, and he's not paying attention to his friend that's overdosed. So I made this piece on boarding, which is really, really cool, actually. Luma Developers, which is an Indigenous housing company, is developing the plot at 58 East Hastings, where Ops used to be. And they are so cool. They came to us and they said, you know, you guys have set a precedent here for like street art, and we really feel like we want to continue that. So they were the first, you know, like developers that like gave us the boarding. They gave us the walkway boarding that they constructed, and they gave it to the street artists, and even paid for all the paint. And one of the pieces that I put up there was this image of Beavis and Butthead. They really didn't want Beavis smoking a meth pipe as an advertisement on their billboard. So if you go by 58 East Hastings and you look at this, he's smoking a cigarette. He's not smoking meth. And I don't think they noticed the needle. I don't think they noticed this, but it's still there. So we took a picture of that and turned it into a sticker. as a funny advocacy through street art to encourage people to try and get recovery. And I know that's a controversial subject, but that's something that I believe in. And there's some things that have to change still, because I do have people come to me and say, I want to get out of this. I want out of this. I don't want to be a prisoner in the downtown east side anymore, and I want recovery. And unfortunately, the detox wait times are 2 weeks. I have to tell them how to do it, how to lie and manipulate the system. If you really want detox, go to emergency, use specific language, say I'm suicidal, I have a plan. You have to say that, I have a plan. This is how I'm gonna do it. I gave away all my stuff and I'm gonna stick to the plan. Then you're gonna get locked on a mental health ward. And when you're in the mental health ward, if you're lucky and you talk to the right health practitioner, you can advocate for yourself and say, hey, the drugs are overwhelming. Could I please get a transfer from the mental health unit to detox? And that is how you get detox on demand in the Lower Mainland. You have to lie and manipulate to the system. So it's unfortunate. There's some things that I'd really like to change, make it easier, lower barrier for the ones that are ready to try and get recovery, because that's what I believe in. That's what I believe Ops and Insight are for. That's just me. That's my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right, but that's what I'd like to see, and I believe in it. So there's the number for detox, 1-866-658-1221. If anyone has any loved ones that would like to go for that. And is that the last slide? One more. This is another one that me and my friends did. Sometimes it's about making people laugh, and this is a graffiti production that we did, where this is a common theme in the downtown east side where you get bumped. So it says not dope, hardened breadcrumb, and it says bumped. So Bugs has some bad oral hygiene, as we see in the downtown east side, and he just got sold hardened breadcrumbs. And just to his right, there's a 20-foot high Daffy Duck smoking crack behind the dumpster, which is a regular thing that we see. So, to anyone else that seems horrifying, but to people in the downtown east side, it's relatable and it's funny and it brings a smile to their face. So they enjoy it. And that's one thing that we do, and bringing a little light to the darkness through street art and street art advocacy. So I really like to thank you guys for listening to me yammer on for an hour. I think we're done here. I've gone a little bit more. I've gone 12 minutes over. I apologize. So thank you very much.